Hi guys, this is Luca Angelici from Mac Bass Company. Today I'm here with the great Jeff Berlin, and I have the opportunity to ask him some questions.
Please.
I apologize for my pronunciation, but I'm working on it. So let's start with the interview, which will available on my YouTube channel, Luca Angelici, and also on Mac Bass Facebook page and YouTube channel too. Hi Jeff, thanks for your kindness.
Hello Luca.
And for dedicating us your time. So let's start with the first question. Okay, on Wikipedia we can read that you are considered one of the top players in the world. Have you ever thought that you would have become a reference figure for all the bass players in the world?
I didn't plan on it. I'm impressed that some people look at me this way. I've had a long history on bass. I've been around for decades, and I've done a lot of music, a lot of gigs, a lot of recordings, and I've studied a lot of music. So I think if you do something for a long time, people are nice, they'll notice. And when I started my career in the 1970s, there weren't many bass players that played with great technique. So when I came along, there was Jaco Pastorius, Stanley Clarke, and me. And afterward, there were many good bass players, but the technique on bass was something new, so people were impressed. But now, today, in this interview, all over the world, bass players can play 100 times better than me. This is the truth. They have way more technique, and it's good this happens because each generation produces better players. But many come to me and they say, "Oh, I listened to you," so it's an honor. It's an honor.
Perfect. We heard that your father was an opera singer.
He was.
And that you start to sing Italian opera songs before starting to speak English.
That's correct.
Would you like to sing a short part of one?
I'll sing you something I sang when I was 2 years old. Now, again, it's my phonetic problem. Si tra I ceppi aleri tolte la mia feri splenderà, la mia feri splenderà. And then I used to sing, how does it go? In questa tomba oscura.
Perfect.
You know, and I was a little boy, and mommy cookie, whatever little children, but I was singing opera because my ear was good. And my father practiced, so I could sing.
Good. Originally, you were a prodigy child who played the violin.
Yes.
You did that until 14.
16.
16.
16.
Okay, perfect. Then you saw the Beatles and were inspired by Paul McCartney.
I was not inspired by Paul McCartney, I was inspired by the Beatles.
Okay.
What Paul McCartney had was 4 strings. What violin has is 4 strings. So it wasn't the bass playing as much as him being a Beatle, Okay. And there's in Help, I remember he did this thing. In the movie, they had the camera here, and when I got my first bass guitar, I did this. So it was a Beatle that impressed me. And later I found, of course, what a fine bass player.
And you ever met Paul?
No, I never met any Beatle.
Okay.
But I did see John Lennon walking down the street one day. I lived in Manhattan.
Okay.
And I lived actually 2 blocks from where John Lennon lived.
Okay.
And I walked out a store, and he and Yoko were walking uptown. I was walking down, and I was going to go, I'm a fan. But I read he liked New York because the New Yorkers didn't bother him. They're New Yorkers. They've seen everything. Yeah, there goes John Lennon. And they mostly leave him alone. But I never met anybody actually from the Beatles.
Okay. Which was the first cover or playlist you played?
Oh, back in the 60s, that would be around 1967. That's when I got my guitar. That's when I was 14. I was still playing violin then. But I got the bass. I would say it would be Hendrix songs, Beatles songs. There was a song called Hey Joe, where the bass line goes... Hendrix Hey Joe. There was another one. And the bass line. And I could play that quickly. So all the kids in town, the musicians, wow, look at that. Those songs, the Vanilla Fudge, rock songs.
Okay. Start with the rock.
So yes, very much. I'm an autodidactic, self-taught rock bass player.
Okay. Let's imagine we are with a young Jeff who has just started to play the bass.
Yes.
We are in the rehearsal room. What will we hear? What are you playing?
Well, I always tried to play lines, not bass. And it took me some years to learn to be a bass player. You know,
Okay.
for me it was always lines. I used to play, what was it, how did this go? I used to play the Doors piano. You know, I played the piano line on the bass. So I played guitar solos, Clapton solos, Hendrix solos, piano lines.
Okay.
And they didn't like this. They wanted a bass player. But that's what I did.
Fantastic. In one of your interview, you have mentioned Jack Bruce as the first virtuoso in the bass history. Do you want to talk about Jack? So I know that you are work on a project on Jack.
Yes, Jack Bruce was for me the first, I think for anybody, he was the first bass player, and I use the word virtuoso because he didn't just play bass parts, he improvised, he was in the time, out of the time, in the key, out of the key. He was the first, really, the very first great revolutionary electric bass player in history. I just don't know anybody that could argue that. Even the great James Jamerson was a rhythm section bassist providing a bass part, but he had a style and got famous for it. Jack did that, but beyond that. So Jack was my hero because some people, I believe, are born to play, and Jaco Pastorius was born to play. When you're born to play, you will do anything to play. When I heard Jack Bruce at 13, before I got my bass, I said, I've got to do this. I know I'm born to play. How good I am, not important. But in my spirit, I've got to play music. And that's why I was attracted to Jack Bruce.
Okay.
And so Jack was the very first virtuoso.
Perfect. And how important has your jazz background been in the process for making you what you are now?
Yes.
How important?
There's two ways to learn how to play. Autodidactic, self-taught, and by being taught music. Jazz as an academic music is the best music you can learn because in jazz is all the harmony and all the musical possibilities that you can find in all music in Western culture. You understand? So jazz helped me to learn to play jazz. You have to know the bass because jazz is changing. So I learned my bass through jazz and I learned music through jazz. So as an academic choice, jazz was the best choice that I ever had because I can play rock and blues and other styles.
Okay.
Anybody can if you want to. I'm not unique. But jazz was the best academic music. No doubt about it. Jazz music changed my life.
Okay, perfect. Can you identify a turning point when your career really took off?
I would say that the turning point happened with Bill Bruford.
Oh, okay.
I was in New York and I was a very good up-and-coming studio bass player. I played in town with the best musicians. I was very lucky. I was in the center of the most busy and amazing musical period, and I was there, right there. It's just a coincidence. I was lucky. So, but when I got with Bill Bruford, everything opened up for me.
Good. Is there anything you like to do with your career that you haven't done yet?
Yeah, I have an interest to play a solo on pop or rock music. I notice it hasn't been done. I have some very interesting sounds that if a producer has a vision to not let the guitar do it, but to have the bass do it, history will be made because something unique will have taken place. I like to play with pop and rock. My rep is fusion and jazz, and I want to play, but I'm 63 years old. I love other musics, and I have some interesting things to contribute, so maybe rock and pop will be in my future, as well as the music that I love.
Good, perfect. How has the way of playing changed from how it was in the 80s and the 90s from today?
The 80s and the 90s were rock and pop oriented. Today it's more so. In the 80s you could still be a player and have a career. Today it's very, very hard. But on bass, ironically, today has the greatest community of the greatest bass players that ever played. Today, in the 80s they weren't there. In the 90s they weren't there. In the 2000s they started to be. And now in the teens, the 2000 teens, there are so many incredible bass players. But ironically, there's more of the greatest bass players, but music won't let them play. Music isn't interested in bass. In fact, in my opinion, today music has almost no interest in bass. Now you could do that with a synthesizer and not pay me money. So I believe that with the greatest bass players, it's harder for them to play where they could in the past. But today, music doesn't seem to be interested in bass that much.
Okay. So sad.
¿Dije correctamente? ¿Estás hablando bien?
What is the main skill that the best players should have, and what is the biggest mistake that the bass player shouldn't make?
The biggest skill is experience. Experience means to get into music and get dirty. The best, 100%, not 99, 100% of all the bass players that are well known in the world all got dirty in music. They carried amplifiers, they played clubs, they were autodidactic, they listened to music, they practiced with bands, they played with different drummers, with different, they moved around. They were dirty in the experience of playing and learning and growing a career. The best thing a musician can have a bass player is to accept that one, this period is temporary, and two, without it, you're not going to become as good as you could if you will be okay and accepting that learning how to play is a hard thing to do. It's not easy, and you said, what is the biggest mistake bass playing?
Yes, that the best player shouldn't make, the biggest mistake.
Well, I'll give you my opinion about it, and my opinion is the biggest mistake bass players make is they are learning the wrong things, believing that they're learning the right things. I'm 63 years old. I started in music in 1958. I was a violinist. And the first lesson I ever had on a little violin, the first lesson the teacher taught me to play, the one note was the right note. Not close to the right note, not kind of the right note, the right note. Musicians that learn right from the beginning that there is a right note and right music quickly cancel out other directions to learn. You can go right into the truth of music. In Italian, the truth is you say c'è la luna mezzo in mare, right? You don't say c'è la lui mezzo in mare, or I don't know, c'è allora mezzo in mare. You speak the right words. The biggest mistake I feel is bass players are in learning incorrectly, that if they learn correctly could save them 10 years in what do I do, and get them right into the instrument for the reasons that it was made, which is to make notes. That's my opinion about this.
Thank you. So, talking about Italy, what is your relationship with Italy? Talking about your Italian fans and the Mark Bass company.
My connection with Italy began with my father. My father, we're Jews, and the Germans arrested my grandparents in Belgium. And my father was not arrested. And he went, well, it's a little longer story. He was born in Belgium, and when the Germans were occupying Belgium, technically, at that time, he was under their protection, technically. My grandparents are Russians who were enemies and Jewish, so the Germans took them. So my father went through Italy to the south, to where the Allies were, and he went through the Abruzzi. I called him one day, Dad, I'm eating lunch in the Abruzzi. He said, I can't believe it. He was hiding in the Abruzzi so they wouldn't catch him. So all my life I heard we had Italian people in our home, because my father always felt safe with Italian people, because the Italians, sometimes he would say, they're coming. They would say, come in. And the Italians would hide him and save him. So I heard all these stories. So when I came to Italy, I said, this is the country that saved my father's life. So that's one love I have, for Italy. Mark Bass is a coincidence. I was in Rome playing a concert, and I didn't have an amp endorsement because I love the amp companies, other ones. They make great amps, but I need tone. Tone is, for me, tutti,
Okay.
Tone. And I plugged in a Mark Bass amp to check out amps. And I said, wow, what's this tone? And there was a Mark Bass rep here who watched this. Mm-hmm. And he told Marco Di Virgilis, and Marco sent me an email, and he said, would you like to try our amp? I said, sure. So Marco sent an amp, and the same reaction. I always heard a sound, a bass tone. And I plugged in the amp. I didn't even touch the knobs yet. I just plugged it in, and I went like, that was it. That was it. I'm very quick here. What? 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 I said, this amplifier is what I've been looking for. And at the time, Mark Bass was a tiny company. Nobody in America ever heard of them. But I said, please let me have this amp. Let me be with you. And then I would, say, hey, Mark Bass, I told everybody. And they all say, who's Mark Bass? What's Mark Bass? I said, this is the best amp. You got to try Mark Bass, everybody. And I helped them, but I didn't build this company. They were going to be big anyway. But, I told many of people about it. And
you make your part.
I make my part, but out of love. Because one, these are lovely people. These are the nicest people, kind, loving, gentle. They really are like family. My wife is here, and they go, Gabi, Sita, Gabi, they take us like family, And Marco is like my brother. Ricardo is like my brother. I meet everybody. Monica and Sandra are like my sisters. These are lovely people. So, I'm very happy with this company. Plus, they make the best amplifier I ever played. This is not a sales. This is the best amplifier I ever played. To this day.
Good. What are you working on at the moment?
I'm working on my project to record the music of Jack Bruce, but it is taking a long time to prepare. We have we're doing this differently because record companies only sign acts that they feel are going to sell 1 million. The record industry is almost finished. So people like me, we went to pledge companies and they put out a website and advertising, and they go to Luca and they go, hey, Jeff Berlin is doing a CD. Buy a CD and you'll get it when it's recorded. So we used to record the music, then say, hey Luca, you want to buy a CD? Now the new way is, hey Luca, buy a CD, and I take the money and then I record and then I give you the record. And it's a little strange for me too, but it's not getting as many responses as I need. I can record this record today, but I have a vision with some great musicians, but they want to get paid. So I can do this with lesser musicians and put out a good record, or I can do it with the musicians that have agreed to play, and many big names, but they want to get paid. Many are millionaires, but they want to get paid. They're working. So my hope is to get endorsers more, people to go to the website and buy the CD, and also to find somebody that are business people that want to invest in a great...
A sort of crowdfunding.
Yes. Yes. So I'm working at this. The music is arranged. Where's the record button? Hit the record. I'm ready. I want to record. So that's the project that is most in my vision right now.
Okay. Talk about didactics. We all know that the bass was born only 60 years ago.
Yes.
And so the teaching of this instrument is an instructor as well as the piano one. How is your vision of didactics?
Well, as I mentioned, as far as my research goes, I found there's only 2 ways to learn. You learn by didactic, self-taught, autodidactic, or you learn by music. And I learned that for 500 years, that's the only way that music was taught. I don't think there was another way. There were no other methods, but this method worked so well that it created the whole world of musicians. Then something funny happened in bass. Bass started to be taught in different ways. Inventions of philosophy and classes and approaches happened that to me began to compromise 2 ways of learning that have been proven to work. So bass got broader and broader and broader, and also it got away from music and got into performance. You can see it on the internet. How do I work with a drummer? Performance. How do I get a gig? Performance. I want to play rock. I want to play these performance. You don't see many comments about what is a good substitute chord for an A minor 7 flat 5, because there's no emotion to this. Okay. So in my opinion, autodidactic works 100%. Are you a musician?
Yes.
I know you're autodidactic in part. I know you are. Didn't you teach yourself some stuff?
Yes.
Everybody does. So the method works. The other way is music. And if people will focus, if bass players focus on this 2 historically proven points, they can ignore everything else, all other approaches, and become better in 1 year than they would take them in 5 to 10 years. And this is a truth. I've proven it. I've done it. So that's my thinking about learning on the bass.
What do you take your inspiration from?
My inspiration comes from the love of music. I don't mean to sound like a guru. There are people that have been chefs, cooks, for 50 years. They love to cook. They love to create meals. There are people that paint, amateur or profession, They love to do this. There are people who dance. You want to go dance this weekend? They love to dance. I did two things in my life. One is music, the other is Spanish. And I love music so that I'm inspired to learn more than I know. And I mean, it's been quiet at this time because I'm into a spiritual. I've been reading and trying to work on that. But music is my greatest inspiration. It's in my DNA. I think it's in the DNA of many people who will get dirty. Remember dirty?
Yes.
Who want to learn. Because if you want to learn, nothing stops you. You know, people, I don't recommend this. People lose their families in the past. They lose their health. They lose their money. They lose their homes because they got to play. Now, I don't recommend this, but I understand the spirit of it. I understand.
Okay. This is the last question. So let's start with your clinic. Do you want to talk about it before it starts?
Sure. My clinic and all my clinics are designed to get interested bass players to focus on things that will get them to play better. People that come to clinics are either fans or they want to learn how to play. I do not recommend that anybody goes to a clinic as a fan, because a fan expects a show.
Right.
I'm not going to give a show. I would hope that people would come to a clinic only to learn something about learning how to play this instrument better. And ironically, to me, the best way to do that is not only to tell people what to do, but because of how the bass is being taught in the world today, I have to suggest things for bass players not to do. This is new for me. I've been doing it for some time, but the concept is not to insult people that teach differently. It's not to insult schools, teachers, because they all teach with love. But if I imagine the cigarette companies also sell, some must believe you're not going to get sick. Or McDonald's or the American hamburgers. No, we've changed the beef. We want to be healthful. Somebody has to say, well, cigarettes is not so good for you, and McDonald's is not a good food. So, unfortunately, I'm in a delicate balance because I don't want to insult anybody, but I want people to know, bass players to know, that to learn, I have suggestions, but to also learn, I have suggestions of things not to do that are very popular. And then they can weigh them and decide how they feel about it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you again for your kindness.
Thank you.
It's a very, very good pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, Luca.
Bye, and thank you again, Jeff.
Ciao, ciao.